video for the trans math class, and it's for assignment number 11. And on this one, again, all the assignment's going to be at the end is there's a quiz on Moodle that you need to take. You don't have to do anything out of the book, any of the math problems that you might see on this video. It's just an assignment or just a video or a quiz on Moodle. So just make sure you do that for assignment 11. This covers like 5 sections in the book, covers the rest of chapter 10. I'm just going to go over a lot of different definitions and explain things that you should know about different things related to housing cost. So first thing, allocation of a monthly payment. Your allocation of your monthly payment. Your allocation of your monthly payment. We've talked about this in the past. That's how much you actually pay. Like if you pay $1,000, well, that whole $1,000 is not getting allocated towards your loan principal or the principal of the loan. All right? And we talked about this. We made long charts earlier in the year of how to figure this up. And it was something where you would have your payment. Each month might be $1,000, so you pay $1,000, and then we figured out how much went to interest, or amount to interest, and then we figured out the amount to principal. That's what this is talking about. How much is allocated to each of those areas. All right, so your interest is your principal times rate times time. We've talked about that. Remember, time always has to be in years. Your rate is the percentage, and the principal is the total amount of the loan or the total amount that you borrowed. Your payment to principal is your monthly payment minus the interest. Again, we've done all these in the past. I just wanted to go back over them. Your new principal is the previous balance, whatever the previous balance was, minus the payment to the principal. All right. If you're making a mortgage loan, remember we talked about at the start of the loan, if you're making a $1,000 payment, then very little of that is actually going towards the principal. So if you borrow $100,000, it's not like that after you make that first $1,000 payment that you only owe them $99,000, right? Most of those first few payments, most of the first payments throughout the loan are going to go towards interest, paying off the interest. So that's what we talked about in class, and we talked about how if you can make extra payments or if you can add more to that, then you need to tell that lending company, hey, I want to pay my $1,000, but I also want to put an extra $200, but I want it all to go towards the principal. So that takes that down so they don't make so much interest off of you. Some lending companies will allow you to do that, some won't. So you can figure that out using these formulas. Again, just know that for those first payments, for the first while, depending on how long the loan is, most of those payments are going to go towards the interest that you owe them, not towards the principal. Get that? Real estate taxes, these are other things that are involved in taking out a mortgage or buying a house. Real estate taxes, homeowners insurance, the premiums for the insurance, so on and so on. I'm going to skip over this page a little bit. Your real estate taxes, taxes collected by a city or county from homeowners to pay for roads, parks, schools, government offices, and other services. So any money that they collect from you off these taxes, they're supposed to use it to pay for all these things. All right, so you you'll have real estate taxes, and this is something you gotta watch, because a lot of times on your real estate taxes, they're charging you, they come out and they figure out a value of your house, and most of the time, a lot of people don't even know what it is, and they just know that they have to pay the real estate taxes. So you've got to keep an eye on it. The assessed value. The assessed value is the dollar value a tax assessor assigns to a property for taxation purposes. Every so often, the county, when you live here in Preble County, the county sends somebody out to your house. Maybe they actually get out of their car and they look around your house, and they may want to look inside your house. Usually not. Usually it'll be somebody, and they'll drive by your house and they'll assess the value according to what they think the value of the house ought to be, and what the value of other homes are around there and that area, so on and so on. So you really got to watch this. I know a few years ago, Preble County assessed a bunch of houses, and a lot of people threw big fits because their property taxes went up so much, and then a lot of the houses got reassessed, and they figured out that maybe the houses weren't worth quite as much as the assessor was saying that they were worth, for whatever reason. All right, so make sure you keep track of that. Know when your house gets assessed. Make sure you look at it. And I know I've called a couple of times for my house and asked them, hey, can we get this reassessed? Because if one of you guys want to buy this house for what you're saying it's worth, I'm going to sell it to you today, because they had it assessed at too high of a value. But that's what you pay these real estate taxes off of, is whatever they assess the value of your house to be. Tax rate is the percent of income, sales, or property value collected in taxes. Here we're dealing with the property value. So they will have a certain set amount that they collect. It might be 3% or something, that Preble County is going to say, all right, if your house is worth this amount, we're going to take, our property tax is going to be 3% of that for you living in Preble County. It's expressed in mills. We're going to talk about mills here in a minute. You've heard of mills before, probably, when you've heard of school taxes and different things. They've sort of got away from saying it that way, but in the past, there might be a 3 mil levy or something like that on the ballot, and a lot of times I think they just use that to confuse people, so they don't know what 3 mil means. A lot of people think that 3 mil means 3 million, and that's not the case. The market value of the house, we'll talk about mills here in a minute. Market value of the house is the price at which the property can be bought or sold. And you've got to make sure that this market value and their assessed value somewhat go together. Right? If the market value is $100,000 and they're assessing the house at $150,000, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The rate of assessment. The rate of assessment is the percent of a property's market value that is taxed. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll say, all right, we're not going to tax you on the whole assessed value. We're only going to tax you on 50% of the value. Some counties do it that way, other counties don't. It's just different everywhere. You just got to know how it works for your certain area, wherever that you're buying this house at. So their rate of assessment, they're going to take the tax on just 50%. They're not going to charge you for the whole value. They're going to charge you a percentage of whatever 50% of the value is. These are some formulas. Assessed value equals market value times the rate of assessment. Real estate tax is the tax rate, whatever tax rate that county or city or town, whatever is going to charge you, times the assessed value. A mill, when you hear mill, it's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. It's a thousandth of a dollar, all right? So it's like a tenth of a cent. So it's a tenth of a penny. So 10 mils will be 1 penny. And what that's saying is they're charging you, if you earn $1,000 and you have a tax rate of 50 mil, then you pay $50 for that 1,000. All right, so 2.5 mil means 0.0025. It's not a whole penny. So what this is saying is whatever it is, you're taking this 0.001 and times it. So if it was, your property was worth $100,000 and you're paying 1 mil, which that's what that stands for, you multiply that and that's going to tell you what that is. So they're taking, for every dollar it's worth, they're taking out a tenth of a cent. So if your house was worth $10, they take out, you'd owe them 1 cent. If it's worth $20, you'd owe them 2 cents. So on, so on, so on. So know what a mil is? It's $0.001. So it's like a tenth of a cent, a tenth of a penny is each mil. Some different kinds of insurance. Homeowners insurance provides financial protection for the homeowner against various losses. So homeowners insurance is just something that you keep on your house just in case, lightning strikes your house or there's an electrical fire or whatever, and it covers your house to make sure that you're not losing money on it. And even if you don't own the home, there's renter's insurance for the same kind of setup, because if you're renting off somebody, they're not covering your stuff if it happens to have a fire. They're only covering theirs, and you're probably going to just be out whatever you lose. Property damage coverage provides financial protection against damage to one's home and personal property from fire, wind, rain, lightning, other unpredictable events, floods. Sometimes you got to be really careful because a lot of insurance companies won't let you cover or won't cover flood damage. So you've got to know how much money you have in this and know if you have enough to actually cover what you have in your house. If you got the Mona Lisa in your house and it's worth millions of dollars and you only have $100,000 worth of property damage coverage on your house, then you're just going to be out that if it gets destroyed somehow. Personal liability coverage provides financial protection for the homeowner if someone alleges or if somebody like gets hurt on your property for some reason, whatever. If it's for whatever reason, they can make up just about anything. It doesn't have to be anything. If they get hurt on your property or somehow their property is damaged on your property, then this coverage will cover you and protect you so that they don't try to sue you and get the money to pay their doctor bills or whatever it is, or their property to fix their property. So homeowners insurance is just the overall insurance. Property damage coverage covers the property. You got to make sure, especially if you, like I just built a barn not too long ago, I got to make sure that the stuff in my barn is also covered on my homeowner's insurance. Otherwise the barn burns down and the insurance company says, well, we didn't have any coverage on that, then I'm just out. That's not something that they'll do for you. You got to make sure that you tell them, hey, I just built a barn, I need coverage on it. Personal liability coverage, you have to carry this. You live in town, it's your responsibility to keep your sidewalk cleaned off. Somebody is walking down through there and they slip and fall on your sidewalk and hurt themselves. They could very easily come back and say, well, this person didn't keep the snow off their sidewalk and I hurt myself right in front of their house. They're liable for it. So make sure you got insurance to cover something like that. Medical coverage pays for medical expenses for non-family members accidentally injured on your property. My son a few years ago got hurt on somebody else's property, and I actually used my insurance to pay for it, even though I had to pay a bunch of out of pocket because we went to the wrong doctor. But we could have went back and got the house he was at and had their insurance paid for. Loss of use coverage pays for expenses for living away from home. So if your house is partially burned down and you can't live there, or like when we had the tornadoes come through, if it gets partially blown down and you can't live there, you have this loss of use coverage on it, then it will cover you living somewhere else, renting another house, or living in a hotel or motel for that amount of time while your house is being repaired. But this is all stuff you gotta know when you get homeowners in coverage. Do you have these different things in there to make sure that you're covered? Replacement value, this is a big one here. I know a lot of people have homeowners insurance on their house, and their house is worth $120,000, and their homeowners insurance is for $80,000. Well, if you can't rebuild your house for the price you're getting here, if it burns down completely or something, then it's sort of worthless. So you want to make sure that when you're looking at this, you have a replacement value, or you know what the replacement value is, so that's your insurance is going to cover it. And some insurance companies, I think the insurance company that I have now, I actually have the fact that it's sort of the replacement value sort of goes up as the years go along, so that if the replacement value, if the house is worth more this year than it was last year because I added on something, then the replacement value is going to go up, and so it sort of stays with what it would cost me now with inflation and everything to rebuild my house. So that's something you need to check on when you're getting homeowners insurance. A premium is the amount that you pay to an insurance company for the insurance coverage. A fire protection class, a number assigned by an insurance company to a building that reflects how fire resistant it is and how close it is to a water source. So if you live way out in the country and there's no fire hydrants anywhere close, you're probably going to pay a little more insurance because you're in not a good fire protection class. If you live right in town, I know when I was growing up, I lived right in town, and there was a fire hydrant in our front yard. So we were in a good fire protection class because all they had to do was come and hook the hose up right there in our front yard and try to put out the fire. If you live way out in the middle of nowhere, then there's not a fire station close, then you're probably in a poor fire protection class. Also, if your house is made out of brick, it's going to be a little better than if it's just made out of wood, because brick doesn't burn like wood does, so on and so on. A couple of formulas here: amount of coverage on the home, replacement value times the insured percent. Amount of coverage is the amount of coverage on the home times the percent covered. You want to make sure that this percent covered, you want to try to cover 100%. You don't want it to be, 50%. The house all burns down and you're only covered for 50% of what it was worth, then it's not going to do a whole lot of good. This is just a chart. Notice brick stuff. You look at the rates on here, and if it's brick and it's in lower fire protection 1 through 6 here, you get a better premium rate than if it's wood and it's in that same class 1 through 6. So that's just a chart that does stuff like that insurance companies use. This is probably an old chart, so it's probably outdated now. Ignore that. Last thing that we're going to cover here on this video, housing cost and renting. One thing you got to take in consideration when you're looking at your housing cost is your utility cost, and this is whether you're renting or if you own the house. Your public services, trash, telephone's not as big as it used to be, but electricity, gas, water, all that stuff, sewage, you got to take all that in consideration. In one of the other videos I talked about, you want your total housing cost to be less than 35% of your total income. If you get up over that 35%, then you're probably going to struggle every month to make your house payment, to make your mortgage payment or your rent or whatever it is. So you got to take these utility costs into consideration. Some places like Lockengrin have other costs that go into that, you know, your gate fees or whatever else, I think it's like a HOA or something that goes into those costs. Your HOA fees, which is a homeowners association fee for living in that gated community. So there's different things that go into these costs. Your total monthly housing cost, again, I just said this, should be less than 35% of your monthly gross pay. Don't make it any more than that or you'll struggle. Security deposit. Security deposit is made when you're signing a lease or renting a place. You've got to give them that extra money so that if you all of a sudden just move out on them, they have something to fix the damages and stuff. A lot of times you'll get that security deposit back. Sometimes, and you need to read your rental agreement or your lease agreement to make sure that you know, because sometimes they'll just tell you that, hey, we're keeping all of your security deposit at the end because we're going to change all the locks and that's going to cost us money. We're going to completely clean the place. We're going to paint the place. We're going to put new carpet in, so on and so on. And they'll just, it might say in your contract that they're keeping all of your security deposit to take care of that. So you need to make sure you read that carefully if you're renting or leasing a place. Average monthly cost, total annual cost, these are ways that you could decide, hey, do I want to rent, or do I want to own a house? You could compare your total annual cost. Then you also got to weigh the fact that, all right, if I'm renting, it's their responsibility to fix, it's the owner of the place's responsibility to fix different things, but if I'm owning, it's my responsibility to do that. But if I own it, then I also get the rewards if I decide I wanted to sell it. Whereas if you're renting and you move out, you get nothing. You're not going to be able to get part of the payment when they actually sell the place just because you live there. Ignore that. Again, your assignment's just to do the quiz. Do the quiz on Moodle.